Hey, what's up, fam, and welcome to this episode of 49 Faithfully. We're your hosts, Miriah Lee and Teran Lewis. Teran, what's going on?
Nothing much. A lot of news coming out this week, with the 49ers, and then, it's combine week, so I can't wait till that's over so you and I can touch on those things. So yeah, it's been going good. Even I don't know, it was funny. It felt like this week dragged to me. Like it just felt like it took forever to get to Friday, but I'm glad the weekend's here.
Yeah, it seemed like a longer week for me too, since like we didn't do a Thursday show. So I'm used to that being, like my first day off. And so it's kind of weird, my week. But yeah, a lot's going on. Like you said, combine week. So everybody's been busy with that. Um, Got a few things to touch on with that, and then we'll get into that more next week. Hopefully, we'll be joined by Jordan Elliott next week, so we can get into that.
Oh,
Um,
speaking of that, before we go on, I want to give a shout out to Jason Aponte, Brad Graham, and Splash Cousins, Jordan Elliott, for getting their credentials to be able there to go to the combine, sit in the stands, evaluate these players, and have some interviews that they conducted. So kudos to you guys, man. That's a big accomplishment.
yep, I had that at the very top of my list, and Rob Shue as well added to that list as well. Big props out to those guys with them putting in the work this week. It's greatly appreciated, and like TL said, huge accomplishment. Um, let's jump into, we haven't really touched much. There's been a lot of coach changes on the 49ers lately. We lost a handful of coaches to the Dolphins. And then, a couple other situations there as well. Um, just what, yesterday was it announced that they hired quarterback coach,
Brian
now is his
Greasy.
title. That was never his title before, but that's his title now.
Yep.
Brian Greasy. Um, what are your thoughts on this?
Do you really want to hear them? No, I'm just playing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it
So
seems like there's been a lot of mixed reviews out there. So
absolutely. Well, here's my situation on that, and we're I'm a diehard 49ers fan, but I understand why people call us the 40 whiners because we complain too much. I've heard all year we need to get rid of Rick Scangarello. Rick Scangarello sucks. I don't like him. He's not a good quarterback coach. This, and that. They go out, they hire a guy, and I get people think like, well, he just hired him because he's Mike Shanahan. He played with Mike Shanahan. This and that. Well, the fact of the matter is, the guy played 10 years in the league. You know what I mean? And it's not like they hired him as an offensive coordinator or an assistant GM. They hired him to be a quarterback coach, which he did pretty successfully in the NFL. He made a Pro Bowl. He was the highest passer rater, in football the year he made the Pro Bowl. I think one year, like 2004, he had the highest quarterback completion percentage. So the dude is no slouch, and he's a quarterback. Like he knows the position. So I have no issues with it, especially because, like I said, people cried and moaned, and Rick Scangarello need to go. We need to let things play out sometimes. We
yeah,
sit there and we complain about stuff, and then, like I said, if everybody wants to talk about, oh, I trust Kyle, well, then trust him. Then trust him with this hire, because I hear nobody crying when D'Amico Ryans was hired as a linebackers coach in 2017. Nobody complained about that, and now look where he's at. It was a great
right.
hire, and he had no coaching experience. So stop crying and just deal with it and let it play out. Like these people are just, it drives me nuts. And like I said, I used to get pissed off and people would be like, "Oh, the 40 whiners." Well, you know what? Sometimes that's what it is, because we sit here and we complain about stuff. It's like, I feel like sometimes Kyle and John can't win for losing. And like I said, I'm not saying that they're perfect. They do deserve some criticism, but it hasn't even panned out yet. Like he just got hired and people were saying it's a bad hire and this, and that. Let the season play out. Let's see the development of Trey Lance before we start providing our own judgment and thoughts on this situation. So that's what I have to say about that. I think it's ridiculous.
Wow. First, before I go into that, what's up, Troy? I hope you are doing well. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate
Um,
it.
yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about the guy. I know that, he's never been a quarterback coach before. Obviously, I can understand, like Troy said, why, people are confused of the hire. Um, but like you said, we wanted an upgrade at that coaching position. And whether it's an upgrade or not, it's definitely a change. And I think, the future will decide if it was an upgrade, obviously. Um, but I think overall, like we've seen a lot of things this week. There's a lot of rumors and people starting drama out there, but one of the things that's been swirling around was to trade George Kittle. Shout out to my guy Grant. Um, I think, and obviously a lot of fans are pissed about even hearing that, right? I think though that, let me see how I want to put this. We always talk about, that the team has to get better every year. If you're not getting better, you're pretty much getting worse, because if you stay the same, teams around you are getting better, right?
That's true.
So I think that sometimes we have to take our hearts out of it when looking at players and coaches and whoever on the team. I think if it's going to make the team better, we should be looking at that, like I'm not saying that, oh yeah, trade George Kittle. I just brought that up for like the situation, but like we need to take our hearts out of these players. I see a lot of people like, oh, we need to keep Tart, we need to keep this guy, we need to keep that guy. Like if we keep the whole team from this past season, we're not getting better. We have to let some of these people go and try to get better at these positions. And the same thing goes with coaches, I think. So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, those are some excellent points too, and I'm with you. I don't think I would. I don't want to trade George Kittle. I think he's an excellent tight end. He's top two for me. But at the same time too, I don't remember the last time he played a full 16 games. And let's come on now, and let's be real. Like, as much as I love George Kittle, if somebody approaches you and says, "Hey, let me give you a first round pick for George Kittle," you have to at least look into it. You'd be a fool not to. You know what I mean? He's about to be 28. I think coming up here pretty soon. Our offensive weapons around him are getting better with Debo and Ayuk and stuff like that. So, I mean, even if you turn that first round pick in and you get yourself like another top tier player, like I don't think it's really a mistake. But at the same time, I think people, when it comes down to it, is like, when you have a great player on your team, people are like, well, dang, like, this is a guy you drafted. He's been with you through thick and thin, during the bad years, during the good years. So why would you want to trade him? And I get it. Like I said, I'm not for it, but I'm just saying, and who cares? People sitting there getting pissed off at Grant. They're blocking him, muting him. That's his opinion. Like, this generation kills me. Like, people are so soft.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe you brought that up. And I mean, that's that man's opinion. If he
Yeah.
thinks like we can get some value for George Kittle, let him have his opinion. If you don't like what he's saying, mute him or block him. Like, it's just, to me, it's just funny. Like, we can't have a healthy debate anymore without
Right.
people sitting there saying like, oh, you're a clown, or this is and that. It's like, come on, like, that's just that man's opinion. So, and it's funny too. I don't know who it was. I think it was Jesse Naylor. He was just like, look, there's a lot of people who have been traded and the team have gotten better. Like, you look at the Raiders when they traded Khalil Mack, they were
Yeah.
killed for that. They were killed for that, and then they got back, a decent haul. I know some of the players didn't pan out, because I'm not gonna say it because I'm not sure, but they got Max Crosby, I believe, in there, and then I think they got Josh Jacobs, if I can remember correctly. I don't know full firsthand, but it's not that far left, I guess you can say, to
Yeah.
make up to say stuff like this. So yeah, I mean, and Troy's right. Like, Kittle has dropped off, and hopefully I'd like to see him too with Trey, because I feel like with Trey, he won't have to block as much, because I don't feel like we're gonna have to rely on the run game as much. And I feel like Kittle has been underused the last couple of years, just because we so rely on our run game. Like, we heavily rely
Yeah.
on it. I think it's going to be a little bit of a it's going to be more versatility. I think we're going to do, a lot more passing, I guess you can say, where Kittle can be out and actually be used as a receiving tight end, which that's where he's great. I mean, he's a great blocker too, but he's amazing when he gets the ball in his hands. So
Yeah, and I think this year, like we seen a huge drop off from him because our O line was so bad. Like us losing McGlinchey. Yeah, he's not the greatest pass blocker, but in the run game, he's huge. And we lost him. That side of the line was horrible. So we had to have Kittle in there, a lot blocking. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I listened to Grant's points on why he said that, and everything he said made perfect sense if you take your heart and your love for Kittle, out of it. Um, but that is what it is.
Yeah.
He did. I want to talk about something though. I want to get your opinion on this. He had brought up, Kittle has suffered from injuries the last, couple years. Um, he had brought up how Kittle's legs are like really small compared to his upper body, like skinny, compared to how beefed up that Kittle keeps his upper body. And that seems to be the area where Kittle's getting all these injuries and where he suffered from an injury this entire, season. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think that that's something he can improve on, or do you think that that's just, how his body is built? Because I can't seem to not think that Kittle's not trying to work out his legs, like
Well, the fact that he's such a great blocker just proves he has some strong legs because you're not a great blocker without it. You know what I mean? Because that's where
right,
your leverage comes from. I mean, of course, he can improve it by doing squats and stuff like that. But sometimes, and I'm not sitting here not thinking, I'm sure when they go through the off-season workout program, I mean, I'm 100% sure that there's a squat routine that's implemented in there. I mean, you don't play football without doing squats. Anybody that plays football knows squats are very important. So it just could just be the way he's built. Like, some people can work out and do sit-ups and, crunches their whole life, but still not have a six pack. You know what I
right,
mean? It just depends on how your body is built. So yeah, I don't really don't think I have any issues with that. I mean, you can't control the girth of his legs. You know what I'm
right.
saying? So yeah, and I'm sure, like I said, I have no doubt that Kittle has strong legs because, like I said, he's in the trenches with dudes that are 60, 70 pounds heavier than him, and he's taking care of business. So
Yeah. Um, Troy says I would trade Jimmy and Kittle to get in the first round and get the wide receiver Watson, Trey and Watson. I've seen that floated around a few times too, and obviously I think it comes more so because that's questionable whether Kittle supports Trey, and we know that that Jimmy is his guy. Um, I know you said that you wouldn't want to trade Kittle, but if this were to be an option, would you think about that? This is something that they think about doing,
well, if you can package them both and get a first round pick, I wouldn't be against it. But I'm not getting the first round for Watson. I feel like our needs are bigger than him.
right?
So I would probably go after like an offensive lineman or edge, or maybe even a top flight corner or something, something like that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know we need a receiver, but I truly believe we'll look at one in free agency because, I mean, it'd be different if we had either Debo or Ayuk, like either or, and didn't have
Right.
a second wide receiver. We have our top two receivers. All
Yeah.
we really need is a nice slot, and then we re-sign Juwan Jennings. I already like what he's bringing to the table. So I really don't think that would be necessary. Like I said, if Washington calls and says, "Hey, give me Jimmy and Kittle, and I'll give you the 11th overall pick," I would definitely look into that. Just because of simple fact, you got to look at it as like, man, because you can actually take that pick 11th and trade back down and get another second.
Right.
And you can be
Right.
like, "Oh yeah, I'll take the 11th," and then be like, somebody wants to trade down. We trade from like the 11th pick to like the 17th pick, and then somebody gives us a second, and then that's ball game. Like, now we have a first and now 2 seconds. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
there's ways around it. Like, like I said, it's always a game of chess. So yeah, if you look into something like that, but like I said, if I go into the first round, I'm not going after somebody like a Watson. Don't get me wrong though. Like, if we're sitting there and somebody like, you know, Burks or Olave are sitting there, is going to be
Yeah.
enticing. It'll be enticing. Don't get me wrong. But, if there's a top offensive lineman there or a top edge, I'm taking that over a wide receiver.
Yeah. And, I don't know about specifically Kittle, but I think it could be a possibility that we do pair Jimmy up with somebody and trade a team for a draft pick and a player as well. If a team, will stick with Jimmy and Kittle, if a team were to trade us, a late first round pick, but trade us a cornerback or a position of need, a player that we need that's, highly valued to us, I think that's something we have to look at as well.
Yeah.
Um, what's up, Bash? 49er Minded. Thank you for joining us. 49ers Throwback. Appreciate you guys. Um,
Got Sin in the
yeah,
building.
I agree. Like we obviously do see Kittle working out his legs and everything. Um, but I mean, injuries do seem to happen to his legs a lot. So I think it's something that you'd have to question. There's a reason why. Who else did you say we have? Oh,
Sin, I
Sin.
saw Sin in
Hey,
the building.
Sin.
Yep. 49ers throwback. What's up?
Enjoy getting your nails done, getting pampered. Let's see what everybody's saying. Happy Saturday to you as well. Um, yeah, Watson's stock did raise a lot, especially this last week. You know, he with his 40 time and the way that he tested throughout, and even his interviewing process, I heard went really well. So he's definitely put himself way out of our reach.
Yeah, because we don't pick until 61. So yeah,
Yeah,
I can. There's no way we're gonna be able to get him unless we. And like I said, I don't think we have the draft capital to sit there be trying to trade up anyway. So
right.
yeah, I think he's out of our reach.
I agree. Um, so let's get into, obviously John Lynch is there at the combine and did a few interviews. Um, he touched. Oh, well, before we get into that, let's announce that. Let's talk about Jimmy G's big announcement that he needs to have surgery on his throwing shoulder, and will not be able to throw for at least 16 weeks. How do you think that that impacts the 49ers' ability to trade him? And then with that, we'll go ahead and get into what John Lynch had to say about that.
It's all comical to this point. Um, so here's my thing. If his shoulder was as bad as it supposedly is, he would have had surgery within 48 hours after we lost to the Rams. You know what I mean? Like he would have had surgery then, so he can be like, okay, and then start his rehabilitation now to see what he can do. And then if he did the surgery, what in January or whatever the case may be, whenever that playoff game, what did in January, he would have been almost halfway done. You know what I mean with his rehab process. So it's funny to me. I look at it as like he's trying to get released. I think
Yeah.
him and his agent are working us. Like, they're trying to see what we can do. I think they're just like, well, it's called the 49ers bluff, this and that. Because if I'm a team, I'm not trading a second for him. Because one, he's hurt. If he goes into a system he doesn't know, now yeah, I understand he can know the playbook, but he's literally not going to be throwing to receivers until training camp. So now he's missing OTAs, he's missing mini camp, and two, it's not like he has 3 years left on his deal. He has a year
Right.
left on his deal. So you run the risk of losing this dude because if he goes out there and even if he balls, like you're gonna have to be like, man, like we have to make a decision. Do we want to keep him or do we have to franchise tag him? So you're running the risk of trading a second for him. He's mediocre. You paid him 25 million, and then now you're gonna let him walk because like you don't want to resign this guy. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I just don't see us getting a second for him. I think if they can get a fourth or a fifth, just go ahead and take it. You know what I mean? And then instead of losing it, because you know what, if I'm like, if I'm a quarterback going into a team that I probably want, because I think the agent has had some conversations behind doors with some of the teams who are interested. People can say, oh, tampering, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Like, they you know I don't think they'll do it over text. I think it's more like a phone call, like, hey, what's going on, let's do this and that, you know what I mean, because they don't want to get caught up. But let's just say it's Pittsburgh, right? If his agent has talked to Mike Tomlin and them and said, "Hey, look, how interested are you in Jimmy? Oh, I'm very interested, but I don't want to give a second for him." Okay, well, we'll postpone the surgery, see if he gets released. Now it's a win-win because you can sign him outright and keep your draft capital to improve your team instead of giving up picks. So I think that's what it comes down to. I think it's just a game of chess. They did this. They postponed the surgery, 16-week recovery. So now teams are going to lowball us, which I don't really call it lowball because I don't think that Jimmy is worth a second round pick anyway.
Right.
I think it's just they're going to be like, okay, well, you wanted a second. How about a fifth? So they're going to call 49ers bluffs to see what we're going to do. And then 49ers are going to be like, okay, so I think it's a wait and see approach right now. I think after the combine, the next couple of weeks is going to tell us a lot, I think.
Yeah, I think it's pretty funny, that that announcement and his surgery and everything comes out the week of the combine, where we know that, like you said, all the, and even John Lynch himself said that one of the benefits of the combine is that so many, that all the NFL teams there are there, the agents, and you can get a lot of talks and a lot of work done, like for trades. So I think the timing is pretty interesting. That's the very first thing that I thought of when I saw that was, why do you wait so long to have your surgery when you guys have been done playing for a month? Like It's ridiculous. And John Lynch touched on that little and said, that like he didn't even know that Jimmy was going to have surgery. And then he tried to say, and I don't think Jimmy knew either, but the doctors had said that he might just be able to rest it and it get better, which I don't know with that injury if that's even a possibility, but I don't know. I can't see how it could either be, oh, rest it for a month, or and it could possibly get better, or you need to have surgery on your throwing shoulder. Like that's I don't know. That's weird to me.
Yeah, it's all strange. And two, um, it's funny. Everybody keeps talking about the shoulder. Did the thumb automatically heal itself?
Right.
Like I thought he had a third degree torn thumb. Like and that's bad where it leaves you out 8 weeks. Something torn in your body just doesn't heal like that automatically when it's torn. Like, and there's no talk about his thumb at all. So that's another thing that's funny. So was that really as serious as it said it was? Like, I honestly think it was pushed as a narrative. And I'm not saying he wasn't hurt. He could have been hurt. His thumb could have been sprained or something like that. But to say that it was torn, I doubt it. I think it was just a ploy to be like, oh, he has a torn thumb, and look, he's a warrior. He went out and he thrown all these balls in the playoffs. So, and now all of a sudden, there's no talk about that at all. It's
Yeah.
funny to me.
Um, John Lynch did talk about Trey Lance a lot, and Trey Lance a lot. Um, he and I think like a lot of us have been questioning that, like and we talked about this last week. Like, are Kyle and John going to come out and ever say anything like, Trey's our guy, Trey, like back up Trey in anything. And I think that we saw that from John Lynch this week. And I know that, it was floated out there. And if you watch the interview, it was completely in a different context with him and Matt Mayoko about, if Jimmy were to return to the team and, that they budgeted that and whatever. And, we know that, especially in the NFL and with John Lynch specifically, like they don't close the door on anything. There's still a 1% chance that something could happen. So you're not going to say, no, he's not going to return. But I think that he clearly made it known that, we traded it up a lot to get Trey. He's the guy we thought he was. And, like we're moving Jimmy. Like he said numerous times, we're moving Jimmy. We're talking to people. There's interest in moving Jimmy. Like that has never been said, in years past. Like it was always Jimmy's our guy, Jimmy's our guy, Jimmy's our guy. No, the only thing, well, Jimmy's a part of us for now. Jimmy's a part of us right now, but we're planning on moving Jimmy. Like I think that it was clearly stated this week that, they're going forward with Trey Lance as their quarterback.
Sure. And two, like when John Lynch was talking to Matt Mayoko, and he was like, "Yeah, there's a scenario where we put in the budget to keep Jimmy." I think he said that because if he sits there and says like, "Oh no, we're going to get rid of Jimmy," now you lose all your leverage.
Exactly. And
You
that's
lose
exactly what I said to
all,
you.
yeah, you lose all your leverage. So it's like you're not going to come out and just say that. So I get why he said it. I mean, it's frustrating because it's like,
Yeah.
man, because us as fans, we just want to know what's going on. Like, I say 80% of us want this dude gone. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I just think it just comes to the fact that it's like, I think once he's gone, I think everything will settle down as far as like the trade talk and stuff like that. Cause everybody's going to now know, like, okay, he's our future quarterback, regardless of how we feel about it, whether you're for it or against it. And now there's no questioning of who's going to be the starter because with
Right.
both of these dudes on the team, it creates all this controversy because you got the Jimmy fans, you got the Trey Lance fans. Well, I wouldn't say that because I think most of us are fans of the team, but I think you have the supporters who think that Jimmy's the better quarterback, and you have the people who think that Lance is the better quarterback. So
Yeah.
while they're both on this team, it's in shambles because people are just going to talk about it. There's so much hate going on and stuff like that. But yeah, I just think that I don't know. I just don't see us getting anything significant for this dude. I mean, I wouldn't even mind if they traded something for next year. Like we were talking to
Right.
faces and we're like, look, if somebody offers you a fifth, go ahead and take it, but put in there like some incentives like, hey, if he wins you 10 games, the fifth turns into a fourth. If you get to the playoffs, it turns into a third. You make the NFC or AFC championship, turns into a second. You go make the
Right.
Pro Bowl, turns into a first. Like, I mean, the Super Bowl, you go into a first. So put some stipulations like that. Like, yeah, I'll take it. I'll take a fifth in 2023 within regards to X, Y, and Z happening that it can turn into a higher draft pick. Like, I'd
Yeah.
even be okay with that. So,
Yeah, I agree. And I think, that helps a team to, if they're worried about, that he's going to be hurt, obviously, and not be able to play. Well, that gives them a little bit of security as well with that. And, yeah, I mean, at this point, like you said, I think it's better to take whatever we can get um, before he has to end up being cut, and we don't get crap. Take what you can get,
Exactly.
because we need that money, like I
Absolutely.
know. And, Matt asked him, like, so are you saying that you don't need that money off the books to sign, this player, this player, this player, this player? And he's like, well, and it's like they know, like, of course, we're not going to sign back all these players, like we've already discussed, but we need that money to sign players. And, whether that's our own players or free agents, the draft class coming in, like we need money. Like, I don't see it possible that Jimmy Garoppolo's on this team.
Yeah. The 49ers throwback had a question.
Yeah,
He asked
that was
me,
one of the one of my topics. So we are going to get
yeah,
into that.
oh, okay.
Um, Before we jump into that, though, there was a couple some inside info at the combine that was dropped on Grant's show from Rob Shue about that the 49ers are in the market there for a cornerback. And it was question that the very first question of John Lynch's interview was from Jason Aponte about Mike McGlinchey and how his situation is. And he said that, he's rehabbing and whatever, but they're not going to bring him back to play till he's fully out of pain and can, be the player that he previously was. So he says, of course, he's optimistic, but however, it doesn't sound like that's the situation. He said that they are searching for somebody that, looking for a player in free agency that can fill in for Mike if he is not available come the start of the season. And a cornerback too. Um, he said that it's not like one of these big name cornerbacks that they're looking for though. He said around the 10 million a year market or below, Um, so that's two things that he said the 49ers are, currently shopping for there at the combine. So with that being said, we can go ahead and get into what 49ers throwback said. Do you think the Niners should draft a center and a right tackle? I think that we do need to improve that O-line a lot going into this season. Um, so yeah, go ahead and jump into that.
Yeah, so as far as right tackle, you look at Kyle Shanahan, he doesn't really trust rookies on that old line that much. He likes his vets. So, I think Colton McKivitz is going to get better. Jalen Moore is going to get better. And when they filled in for Trent Williams, I think they did pretty good. And they both have versatility to play guard and tackle. So I would rather go in free agency and get me a nice right tackle to fill in like a vet. You know what I mean? And then a draft one maybe on day 3 if you need to, for depth. As far as center, that all depends on Alex Mack. If Alex Mack is like, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and retire, I can't take it, center is going to have to be a top priority in free agency. And we're going to have to, I will use probably my second or at least a third round pick on a center to sit there and groom with somebody who can play interior and play guard until Alex Mack leaves. You know what I mean? So that just depends on him. I think, well, here's my thing. If Alex Mack decided to stay, I wouldn't mind drafting the center like round 4, round 5, just because, then, like I said, they can center. Plus, two, we still have that Jake Brindle guy on the roster.
Right.
So I think he might end up staying. So, yeah, I just think depends on what's going on. But as far as a center, I think a center has to be drafted for sure, no matter what happens with Alex Mack. But right tackle, I think we can handle that in free agency just because we have Colton McKivitz. We have, and then Jalen Moore. So I think we're fine as far as that for depth. But yeah.
Yeah, and he was asked about Alex Mack as well. And I don't know, his answer, first of all, he said that, what he said was obviously that they don't know for sure if he's coming back. He said, and then so that makes it seem to me, okay, well, Alex Mack hasn't made up his mind yet. So there still is a possibility that he's not coming back, right? Um, and then his answer just reminded me a lot about how the whole Joe Staley situation occurred. Like, it was almost word for word about what he said about Joe Staley. And I don't know, like, I can't just trust that now Alex Mack is coming back. And I think obviously, like you said, Alex Mack is up there in age, and even if he does come back, if he makes it through the whole season, who even knows? Um, and regardless, that'll most likely be his last season, right?
Yeah.
I do think that there are a lot of great O line and center prospects in this draft that I've seen, and that I've seen like a lot of the people, the scouts, and everybody that's down there talk about. Um, so I do think that that's one of the biggest, like you said, at the biggest areas that we need to draft at the top of the draft is center. Um, and then getting more into that, I haven't really got your thoughts on what, like your like what do you think the 49ers should be looking at, with that first pick that we have? And then if we do end up getting a first round draft pick somehow or another second round draft pick, like a guys that you think that, if we were to get back into the first round, who do you think that they'd be after?
So um I think well let's so in free agency, I think our most pressing needs that we need to go after are offensive line and probably like secondary. If we can get somebody for cheap, and I don't think we're going to be able to afford like, these big names like the Jesse Bates and all these other guys. There's a couple of guys that, I like a J. Ron Kerr, somebody like that who's going to cost as much money. And then like, everybody's talking about the JC Jacksons and like the Carlton Davis. I just don't see that because of the money situation. So if we can
Right.
get somebody like a Dante Jackson, Rasul Douglas, somebody like that, just somebody for depth. Because I feel like Ambry Thomas and Emmanuel Mosley are okay at starters.
Yeah.
So I feel like if we fill those holes, in free agency, offensive line and secondary, then I think with our first pick, if we jump into the first, great. But if we stay at second round, I would like to look at us to get an edge. And I know a lot of people think edge should be addressed in free agency, but at the same time, I'm like, well, everybody's like, oh, we need a great edge to opposite the Boza. Well, where's that money coming from? Like people just
Right.
don't understand. Like people want to bring all these big. Oh, let's bring in the Chandler Jones. Well, how?
And
He's
then
not gonna.
keep
He's
Jimmy G too.
yeah. He's not gonna. He's not gonna take peanuts. Like people want these big name, but I'm like, look. I mean, and I think you and I talked about is like the D line started to get more in sync when Armstead was moved into the interior full time.
Right.
And I know Ebelcom didn't start off great, but I'm sorry, he had 4.5 sacks the last 7 games of the season. That's pretty admirable. That just shows that he started to come on. Chris Caceres started realizing, okay, this is how I'm going to use him. A
Yeah.
minute you got Charles Minihue that's coming back that we traded for a fifth rounder, and he even said, just give me another year in this defense. So yeah, of course, I feel like we always need edge. I'm a big supporter of always going after an edge because I like to keep those guys fresh. This and that, but to go out and spend on a Chandler Jones, like I don't know where these people are getting this from,
Right.
because there's no way we can go out and get these big names. Because if we get a Chandler Jones, kiss goodbye to Aziz, kiss goodbye to probably a Tomlinson, whatever the case may be, and a DJ Jones. You know what I mean? So yeah, you just have to pick what's out there. Like I said, I'm okay with going out and getting the starter on that offensive line if possible, secondary, and then an edge in the draft. That's how I would play it.
Yeah. Um yeah, I agree. I I heard I've been seeing a lot of people obviously they the whole cornerback situation, and I agree. I think we're good at cornerback, and if they're looking to get a cornerback in free agency, obviously like you said, that will be a veteran, depth piece that they can get to just help contribute and back up those, guys that we do have. Um and then we don't know what's going to be happening with Shark as well, like are they looking for somebody, a cornerback, for that position? Who knows?
Hey Mariah, I have
Um,
something to add too. Like I said, as far as let's just say we bring in a Dante Jackson who's played both slot and outside. He plays for Carolina because I think he's going to walk because they got a lot of corners there. So if
yeah,
he walks, you let him know, hey, you're able to compete. This is that starting role outside, and there's nothing to sneeze at. If we end up in starting the season with like a Dante Jackson and Ambry Thomas outside corners, and Emmanuel Mosley have to play slot, we're good.
yeah, yep. Um, Another thing that they had asked John Lynch about was the Bosa and Debo contracts. How that was. He didn't really get into much about it. He just said that he obviously can't say for certain, but he can say that, he sees them being 49ers, for in the future for a long time.
Yeah.
He did talk about something that, Herm Edwards had said to him, back in the day about, players being elite, and he said that it takes elite will and the skill set. And he said that that's what Debo is. And that's why, excuse me, that's why Debo is such a special talent. And it's funny because he went on this big old rant about Debo and didn't say much more about Bosa. Um, but he said that, in the meetings that defensive players will even say, when they'll ask him like a player that you want to play like, or, whatever, that even they say Debo. So I think that that really says, a lot about, obviously we saw what Debo was, especially this, season. But about the respect that he just gets from that team and coaching staff from top to bottom. So I would be very surprised if they did not take care of Debo. What are your thoughts about them? And do you think contracts do get done for them this season? Because we still do technically have Bosa for 2 more years under contract with the 5th year option.
Yeah, I think Boza seems like he's pretty humble about stuff like that. So I think like, and two, if Nick Boza waits till 2023, he'll probably actually get paid more. So
Right.
he'd actually be smart to sit this one out and be like, okay, just go ahead and take care of Debo because he's only on a 4 year deal. So this is his last year. We have to take care of him now. Kind of
Yep.
like we did with the Fred Warner thing, like take care of him before it even gets to that point. So with Debo, yeah, I agree. Like take care of him now. Let Nick Boza play out, his 4th year, and then obviously pick up the 5th year option, and then say, hey, during the offseason we'll look at the contract extension, and then I think he gets paid more in 2023. Yeah, I think Debo gets paid now, and then we look at trying to bring back, like the key guys like the Tomlinson stuff like that, and then let Boza know, like, look, we have this much amount of money, we're kind of limited, and if he's a team guy, he'll understand that.
Yeah.
Like if he's just like, no, you need to pay me now with my money now, then it's like, come on, dude. Like, are you really in it for the money, or are you in it because you want to win a ring? You know what I mean? But I think he'll be okay. I think like I said, if he's smart, honestly, 2023, because when the cap really spikes, he'll get paid so much money. You know what I mean? So I think it'd be smart for him to wait. And I understand players like, no, I need my money now because you can't tell the future. You don't know what's going to happen in the future as far as injuries goes and stuff
Right.
like that. But I think that they can. I think the Brass can talk him into waiting until 2023 to get his payday. But Debo, he'll get his money for sure. Like I expect that to happen sometime after the draft. I think.
Yeah. And like you said with Bosa, the cap will go up significantly. And then, you know, if he keeps up, knock on wood that, nothing happens this next season to him. But if he has a great season, like we know Bosa to have, he will be the highest paid defensive end in the league. And obviously we'll see defensive ends get paid this, coming up season, this off season, so like you said, that'll just raise the amount that he'll end up getting paid if he does end up waiting that next year. A little off the 49ers topic, but we've seen a lot lately with Kyler Murray and his contract situation with the Arizona Cardinals, and we know that he was drafted number 1 overall in front of Bosa. So he obviously, is in the same situation, has that 5th year option. But it looks like, he's really there um, throwing a fit, I'll say, to get paid this season. And, I just had to say, for as much as people want to put Bosa down for his off the field, whatever, um, I do really appreciate that he, puts his head down and comes to work, and we don't hear any of this drama going around with him because he could, be doing that. He is, one of the best at his position as well, and could be throwing a fit, and he's not doing that. We haven't heard one single peep out of him. What are your thoughts on that whole situation with Kyler Murray? And do you think that the Cardinals end up paying him? And before that, I think, a lot of us probably know who Smitty is, the fantasy football show. Shout out to him. He is a Cardinals fan and lives in Arizona. And I've heard a lot about what he has to say about this situation. And he confirms that Kyler Murray is not a very good leader, that he is a crybaby, that everything that we're seeing come to light right now, that really is true, and that them in Arizona have known that, this whole time. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think um, I agree. I think with Nick Bosa, other than his political views that people don't agree with, which is stupid to me. Like
Yeah.
I said, everybody has their own opinion. This is America. But as far as Kyler Murray, like who do you think you are? Like it's not like you went out there and played the lights. It's not like you were Josh Allen where you went out there and you killed in the
Yeah.
playoffs and your team lost the game. Like you went out there and the loss was pretty much your fault. Like you were horrible in the playoffs. So to sit here and be like, oh, I want my money, and some people take stardom differently. Like I feel like Nick and Joey Boza, they grew up in an athletic family. His dad was in the pros. I think his grandpa was in the
Yeah.
pros. And I think they're pretty humble about it. Like they don't have this, look at me. I was the best player in the state of Florida type attitude. Kyler Murray, I feel like he's different. I could be wrong, but this is just my opinion. I feel like he's different. Like he's been so good everywhere he's been. I think in high school, I think he won like 4 championships, and then
Yeah.
he was an excellent baseball player. Like he was picked top 10, top five, no, top 10 in both professional baseball and professional
Right.
football. So the
That's
dude,
crazy.
so the dude probably just has some kind of ego, like, hey, I'm the man, pay me type thing. Well, that money you're asking for is comical. Asking for like 40, 50 million, like that's laughable in my opinion. To me, he's a good quarterback. He has his limitations because I feel like, you know, I mean, he has a great arm, his running ability, but like Dion was telling us on the last show, like he's ran into Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray's not 5'10", 5'11". He's really
Right.
like 5'8", 5'9". So maybe that height is kind of getting to him a little bit. People trying to figure him out. But here's my thing: if you really want your money, if you love baseball just as equally as football, go do that. Say I'm gonna play my last year out. I'm gonna go back to baseball. You're still young. I
Yeah.
mean, I think the A's might still have his rights. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to go make that money, because we know that baseball makes a killing. I mean, I see 10 years, $500 million contracts. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So if that's really what you're looking at getting a payday, then go, get your butt out of the NFC West and go play baseball. But yeah, the money you're asking for is asinine. Like if I'm management and he steps into my room and says, "Hey, I want to talk contracts," and he throws that $40 million off the table, I'm gonna be like, "Get out of my office. You're dismissed."
Right.
Because we're not talking numbers until you come in here with a serious number. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my opinion on that. I just think he's a spoiled brat, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing is like, what have you done? Like, his agent puts out that letter, like, oh, Kyler wants to lead this team to, the Super Bowl and blah, blah, blah. Well, you've had 3 years and you haven't done it. So, and what? You can't do that then until you get paid? Like, you haven't done it. You haven't shown that you can do that. So, what would make us think that if we pay you, that you're going to do that or that you can do that? Like, I don't know, like you said, he was shitty in the playoffs. And yeah, like the coach wants to take the blame and, that coach isn't great. We all know, but he wants to take the blame and say, that when Hopkins went down, that he didn't, you know, obviously draw up the game plan to help Kyler any and make up for that loss. But it's like, I don't know. Kyler's size is still a big thing to me. Like, I wouldn't want a quarterback that's that small, and we've seen him consistently not be able to see over that O line and D line, So, yeah, asking that kind of money, that's just crazy. And he definitely seems like a spoiled little brat. Glad that's not my quarterback. And yeah, Smitty is awesome. I appreciate him a lot. He helps me win my fantasy football championship.
Oh, so you had
And
help, huh? Cheater. You
and
cheater. No, I was like,
yeah, he's gonna be on the show soon. So shout out to him. Um, I did want to touch on. We talked about the coaches earlier, and a lot of the coaches going to Miami. And obviously, that all started with Mike McDaniel getting the head coaching job of the Dolphins. I've been, I don't know. I think this year we obviously got to see a lot more of Mike McDaniel because he had his weekly, press conference and all that. And at first, I was kind of like, this guy is really, really dorky, like, and he's definitely not everybody's cup of tea, right? Like, some people can't stand him, can't stand listening to him, watching him, whatever, and that's fine. Um, I did definitely grow to like him a lot more as the season went on, listening to him a lot more. And I have followed him now that he's gone to the Dolphins, like watched his press conferences. And um, I do have a few friends that are Dolphins fans, and I've been in the Dolphins spaces and heard what they've had to say. And, the Dolphins fans are pretty split on wanting him or the other coach. And it seems like a lot of those, I'd say, most Dolphins fans are now, on board with Mike McDaniel, and that they've bought into everything that he's selling, and that they're impressed by the coaching staff he's put together, and all that. What are your thoughts of the whole Mike McDaniel situation, and about him taking the coaches that he took away from us? And before you say that, I will say that a lot of the coaches he did take with him are coaches that I did want to get rid of, so I thank him for that. What do you feel about that?
Well, no, I don't have an issue with that. I know there's been a lot of talk like, well, is it Kyle? Like, is he just a jerk? Is he not a good leader? And, don't let the coaches kind of do them. Because I've heard, people like to say, well, Kyle probably micromanages and, this and that. And who knows? I'm not going to sit here and speculate. But at the same time, my personal opinion, if I'm offering the same position of coach, like Wes Welker, let's just say,
Yeah.
he went from wide receiver coach to wide receiver coach. So I think that's why people are like, well, why would he leave if he already had a position? Well, look, who knows if that was a salary increase? Could have been a salary like he like let's just say he was making 650,000 as a wide receivers coach, and they say, hey, you come here, you make 800,000. Cool, I'm taking it. So we don't know the salary implications. Plus, I'm gonna be honest with you, if I had a chance to live in Santa Clara or Miami, that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
Because one, it's cheaper to live there, and two, there's no state taxes like
Right.
it is here in Nevada. So that's more money in your pocket either way. So I don't see it as a big deal. Like, people were questioning Wes Welker anyway. And but I did hear, and it made sense. I heard on Spaces the other day, somebody said that like people like they feel like maybe Wes Welker and Kyle weren't seeing eye to eye on the Brandon Ayuk thing. Like, I think maybe Wes Walker wanted Brandon Ayuk on the field and was like, "Nah, he's just like, I don't know why he's being treated like this." This is that. Kyle's like, "Nah, he's not doing whatever I think he needs to do in practice." So that makes sense.
Right.
That doesn't make it true, but that it makes sense if that what the situation was, because Wes Welker sees these dudes 100% of the time. When he's looking at all positions on the field, Wes Welker is the one who's there with him 100% of the time. So Wes Welker could have truly believed, like, man, Brandon Ayuk is better than Sanu and Sherfield. Like, why isn't he on the field?
Right.
And you know what I'm saying? And Kyle's just like, nah. We need to play Sherfield and Sanu and all these other guys before. So I don't know, but yeah. I mean, people look too much into it. But like I said, it gives us something to talk about. But I ain't like I said, Santa Clara, Miami. That's where I'm going. So that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, I agree. And yes, and they did. They will, I'm sure, pick up Bosa's fifth year option. That is a possibility, and I mean, that used to be the norm with these players. They didn't get paid after their third season, when they have five under contract. But
Yeah, Sam.
um,
So, Sam, what's going to happen is, like me and Mariah touched on, what I think is going to happen is they pay Debo, because Debo doesn't have a fifth year option. He was a second round pick, so he had a 4 year deal. So this is his last year. But with Boza, what you do is, if you want to pay him after this year, you pick up his fifth option. After fifth year option, I think you have to pick it up. I don't know when. Like, I think before the season starts, you have to pick it up like they did with Mike McGlinchey.
yeah,
So they'll pick it up, tell him, hey, we're going to pick it up just so you're on our roster in 2023, but the contract negotiations aren't going to start till after the season.
yeah. Um, Another thing they had asked him about was the running back situation with Trey Sermon and Mitchell, and obviously about us not seeing Trey Sermon too much. He had some interesting things that I thought were pretty funny to say about Mitchell. He said that they call him Drano. And the reason was because he always finds the right gap. That's very interesting to me, because I would think that one of the knocks on Mitchell is that he just runs into the back of his players. He, like, I don't know. that just seemed like a weird thing to me. And then obviously he propped him up for playing through injury, which, obviously that kid was hurt throughout the whole season, and I'm we talked about this, and that's probably why he shouldn't be used as a bell cow. And then with Trey Sermon, he said that he had to make adjustments to how to run in the NFL. And I don't know, like, are they trying to turn Trey Sermon like into an outside scheme, like running type of guy? Because that's not what he is. Like, why are we, like to say, oh, he has to adjust to the NFL running style? Like, the game that he started, like, he had close to or over 100 yards. And I don't know, like, that's such a strange thing to like to say. Are we trying to turn him into something he's not, or like, what do you think the deal is with that situation?
So this is something you and I have touched on since we started doing this show. How this organization drives us nuts with trying to make players something that they're not. So if you have a system put in place, draft the dudes that fit it, because then there's not so much of a learning curve. You know what I mean? So it's like one thing, like with the Aaron Banks thing, for instance. They talked about him, and like, oh, because I mean, in Notre Dame, he was dominant at 340 pounds or whatever, how big he was.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh, okay, we saw how you play. We saw how you dominated all these defensive linemen at 340, 6'4", 340. But you know what? We're gonna change all that. We're gonna draft you, come into the NFL, want you to lose weight, do this, run our scheme, and then you wonder why there's a learning curve. You wonder why these dudes struggle.
Right.
Trey Sermon, same thing. The way he ran at Ohio State was totally different. You traded up to get this dude. So you traded up and used the draft capital to trade for somebody who didn't fit your scheme, and now you're trying to make him fit it. To me,
Yeah.
that just I don't it drives me crazy because we talked about this as far they do it on the defensive side too. You draft a safety. Oh, let's turn him into a corner. Oh, that didn't work. Now let's go back to putting him at safety. Like you're wasting reps for things that they're good at. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So I don't get it. Like I really hope that, Trey Sermon figures it out, you know what I mean, as far as like being able to run in this scheme. I think he will. He's a smart kid. He went from Oklahoma to Ohio State, so he's ran two different schemes in college. So I think he can do it. But yeah, the NFL is just a different animal. So I hope he figures it out. I mean, he was the the running back who they truly wanted because they're the ones that traded up to get this dude.
Yeah.
So the fact that they see a lot of potential in him, I really hope we go into the season with Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell kind of splitting carries. Like, I mean, Elijah Mitchell has proved himself, so I get it. Like, if you're going to run the ball 35 times a game, give 20 to, maybe 20 to Mitchell and give 15 to Sermon, whatever the case may be. Or you just split it up because, as you said, Elijah Mitchell had so many injuries, and it wasn't the same one. It was like a rib here, concussion, and like he had so many, like he had like 4 or 5 different injuries. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he should not be the bell cow. So yeah, I just wish that this organization would draft guys and keep them where they're good at, or draft guys that fit your scheme initially so there's no learning curve.
Yep. And like we've talked about before too, I hope that when, we have Trey Lance in there, that, Trey Sermon fits what Trey Lance does more so than, Jimmy Garoppolo. So hopefully that will help Trey Sermon get going as well. Shout out to my brother from another sim. Appreciate you joining us, Tommy. Appreciate you.
Tommy Huxley, what's up, man? Haven't talked to you since Rumbo's show.
He's talking about Bash cooks eggs on pizza.
Yeah.
And then hit that like button like I hit Marketing Pro's girlfriend. We know Marketing Pro is a Rams troll. I have him blocked, so
Do you?
yeah.
Yeah.
He's like one of the only people I have blocked just because he's so annoying. Like,
Yeah, that dude's something else.
man, he'll spam up the whole freaking chat. Um, yeah, this is something, that we've discussed before about, if Lakin ends up walking and them letting him walk, because obviously Lakin is looking, to and should get paid. And that's where Banks plays, right? And like we've said all along with Trey Sermon, that I think, they were all drafted to play together. Um, so I'm not against that. And obviously, I want to see our players, getting play. That's why we drafted these players for. So, um, but I know that you are a big Lakin guy and have talked about keeping him. Do you think that that's something that we do? Or do you think that we end up, Lakin ends up getting paid by somebody else? We know that teams like the Jets, the Dolphins, have a lot of money, unlike us.
Yeah. So yeah, that worries me because one, the way that we have drafted offensive linemen in this organization hasn't worked out. Like we haven't drafted a good offensive lineman since I feel it was Anthony Davis and can't remember the other guy we had at left guard that one time. We drafted him the same year. I think it was like 2012.
Oh,
Somebody
yeah.
in the chat helped me. But Mike Ayupati.
Yep.
So Mike Ayupati and Anthony Davis, like those are the last two dudes that we have drafted offensive line that you were like, man, these dudes are good. You know what I mean? But then you look at Trent Williams, look at Laken Tomlinson, and then you look at it, and it's like the only reason why that we have good offensive linemen because we traded for them. So do we have faith in this organization to draft some good guys? So Laken bothers me because him and Trent have that chemistry. And then my ultimate thing is if I'm a GM, your ultimate thing is keeping your future of the franchise upright. You
Right.
do not want you want him to have the best offensive line possible. So it terrifies me that because so we look at Tom Compton, and I know it's funny we're talking about this, but he played well, so I'm about to give the man his flowers. But Tom Compton, Daniel Brunskill, and Thomason, all free agents. We're not keeping them all because of the simple fact, like you mentioned, Jets, the Bengals, Dolphins all got money, and Joe Burrow needs an offensive line.
Yeah, he does.
So, and Zach Taylor is under the Shanahan coaching tree. So Zach Taylor runs a similar scheme in Cincinnati, and they got plenty of money. You don't think he's licking his chops, looking at Laken Tomlinson, like, man, he can come protect my quarterback on that left side. So, yeah, it's one of them things. And it's like you said, same thing. Mike McDaniel, same thing. A lot of money, same scheme. So look, I mean, so if I've heard that Laken really likes it here, he likes playing next to Trent. The only way I think we keep him is if we say, we'll give you an $8-9 million base salary, which is still low, but then tell him like, look, you can make up to 13, 14 with incentives because, he's been so solid. So yeah, I don't know. I think we lose him. I'm worried because it terrifies me and I know we're going to pick up some guys in free agency if we lose them, but looking at this roster now, we don't know how things are going to go. It terrifies me that we're going to be starting. We're going to be starting the games week one with possibly Trent Williams, Banks on the left guard spot, Mack, and then the right side you're gonna have probably Colton McKivitz and Jalen Moore. Like I don't know how much I like that. That just you got three guys who are gonna be starting on that line with no experience.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's worrisome for Trey Lance. So the Lakin to me should be priority number one. I had mentioned this before, and me, Jesse, and Jamal, and all of us talking about on Spaces. So looking at the top 10 salaries for interior O line, the highest paid interior O line is Joe Batonio for Cleveland. He makes $16 million. And then you got Eric Flowers, who was the 10th highest paid. He makes $10 million. So I think Lakin's going to be somewhere in between. I think he's going to command between 12 and 14 million, in my opinion. So are we going to be able to afford that? I don't know. I mean,
Right.
that's just what it comes down to. Like I said, I think if you give him an incentive, because people don't understand, this man's allowed only 2 sacks in 2 seasons. That's super solid. I mean, he was a Pro Bowl alternate. He's been playing for pretty much peanuts his whole career
And been healthy.
and been healthy. That's the main thing. He's been healthy. So and then people want to say, because I remember last year, people were kind of like, man, we can't let Trent go. We can't let Trent go best. I mean, so I think we need to have the same energy for Lakin. Like he needs to be kept on his team because of that chemistry on that left side. But
Yeah.
I don't know. We're gonna have to do something. So that's my worry about Lakin Tomlinson.
Sim says, "Don't take my word for it, but I'm cool with Lakin's family up here, and they all think he's staying." And then he says, "Miami wants him though." We'll see how it goes, but I'm confident Lakin is staying.
I hope so. And let's be honest here. Mike McDaniels is probably like, I want Lakin, I want Raheem Mostert. He's gonna want all of our dudes because he wants his job to be as easy as possible.
Yeah.
So he's going to be like, I'm a first year coach. I want dudes who, same thing with Kyle. As soon as he got here in 2017, he brought in dudes who knows his scheme. Don't think that Mike McDaniel's not going to do the same thing. and they have plenty of money because they have a quarterback on a rookie salary.
Yeah.
So you look at it, Lakin Tomlinson, Mostert, like he'll probably take away Daniel Brunskill. Like who knows? We're not keeping all three of them guys. Like I think we're lucky to keep one, to be honest.
Yeah, and you're saying 8 million, base with
Base.
incentives, and Swan's saying, and shout out to Swan, I want to keep Lakin, but if some other team offers him 10 million plus, hard for me to see 49ers signing him.
Yeah.
And then you have Sim saying Lakin 12 mil this year with incentives. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, like if that's projecting what he's going to get paid, it's hard for me to see that the 49ers are going to and even be able to keep him because, obviously, yeah, Miami has the money to pay him.
Yep. And
And,
Cincinnati.
they need an O-line bad as well.
Yep.
So
And like I said, Zach Taylor, he's like, oh my God. Like I said, he come from the Shanahan country, the McVays, the Mike LaFleurs, Matt LaFleur, all of them come in the same tree. So don't think Zach Taylor in Cincinnati's not like, man, I'm offering this dude 12 to $14 million to come protect my quarterback. You know what's going on. And you're right. Another one, Ross Dwelly, these dudes are going, don't be surprised if a lot of these dudes go with Mike McDaniel just because of the chemistry and
right.
and the knowing of his scheme. Like he'd be smart to say, I'm gonna go after Tomlinson, I'm gonna go after Brunskill, Dwelly, and Raheem Mostert. That's a smart move.
Yeah. Tommy says we thought Salah was going to take all our players last off season. Yeah, that is true. However, Salah, I don't know. I feel that the Dolphins are in need of a lot more offensive players, and with McDaniel being an offensive coach, and all these players being available, I can't see that we don't lose. I mean, and we don't have the money to pay him. That's the thing. And Dwelly is somebody that I could definitely see going there or definitely somewhere else. It's hard for me to see that we keep Dwelly. I know a lot of people, that's one of the players, people seem to love for whatever reason. I'm not too sure because he hasn't really contributed much to this football team, if we're being honest.
I just think you don't think with Dwelly. I think his issue was he can't block. His blocking is such a hindrance to the team. And Kyle, he loves him blocking tight ends. It's just a gift and a bonus that George Kittle is who he is as a receiving tight
Yeah.
end. But I think with Dwelly, when he's out there, he's usually open and he has some great hands. So maybe if he's go somewhere and use more as a receiving tight end, I think he'll be okay. I'm not like what other fans are, like real enamored with this dude. Like, oh, he has to stay. Like, no, like he's expendable, but I think he will be better if he goes to a team that uses him more as a receiving tight end. So, what's up, Callie?
Sim says Lakin doesn't want to play in a cold city.
Yeah.
I think,
So
that's something, especially, when you're playing that position and you're getting hit continuously the entire game, like your bones start aching, your body's aching, like that cold ain't no joke on your freaking on sore bodies. um, Shout out to Callie. Appreciate you, my brothers, for stopping by. Um, That's funny when that video first came out this week with John Lynch, and come to find out it was Ash Wednesday, so he has this mark on his forehead. And I'm like watching that video, and it's like my times. I went from working different hours now, so like my times are like flip flopped because I've been working graveyard. So like it's early in the morning for me, and I'm looking at that video, and I'm like, what the hell is on his forehead? And like, why are they just looking at him like as if nobody notices? Like you don't even tell the guy like before you start, like, hey, you got something on your forehead, like if you have a booger hanging out of your nose before we start, like I'm gonna be like, hey, you got something on your nose, like, and nobody's saying anything. I'm looking in the comments, nobody's saying anything, and then Callie posts the video and says something about it, and I'm like, I thought like, I'm just crazy that like I'm the only one seeing this shit. And yeah, well, that's why, because it was
that's
Ash
funny. I'm like, did
Wednesday.
he get punched in his face? Like, did somebody
Yeah.
sock? Did he get punched? Got a big old bruise on his forehead? Yeah, that's
And
hilarious.
it's funny because one of my investigators that night walks into the room and has that same thing on her forehead, and I'm just like cracking up, but I didn't tell her why.
That's hilarious.
um, I think, let's see what else we had to talk about here. I think it was mentioned, obviously that Kyle is not at the combine, and John Lynch spoke about that briefly and said, For one of the reasons is because, of the staff turnover and Kyle having, to get so many new staff members. And so he stayed back, to work on things with them, and he's able to join all the meetings via Zoom. So that seems to be working out well for them. Something that, came out from Jordan Elliott, he mentioned that from speaking with all the players there, it's, across the board, all the players had high things to say about the 49ers and, about how great their interviews went and how great of an organization it is. And, um, that that they just love like everything, high praise, about everything about the 49ers. And, like that just like that actually made me feel good to see that, because I think that with all this drama and even just this offseason so far that we've seen with other teams and about how, other football teams are ran and, um, the politics behind the scenes off the football field and all that. It's just nice to know that the 49ers have come, I guess, a long way from where they once were viewed, in all of that.
Like a cheap organization and kind of dysfunctional and also
Yeah,
like the Chip Kelly days, Jim Tomsula days, and all that
right.
stuff. Yeah, no, I feel you on that.
Yeah, so that was cool to see,
Well, what's
that.
funny too, like all the players have nothing but good things to say about Adam Peters and D'Amico Ryans, and I think they're there. So if they're the ones doing the interview process, like they seem like just such cool dudes and players, coaches, and stuff. And then D'Amico being a former player himself, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure he knows, he tells these guys like, look, this is what we're looking for, this and that. Adam Peters, he's been a heck of a scout. Everybody's always saying that, like, he's the one who's responsible for like the guys we draft late. And so who knows, you know what I mean? So I think just the fact that they sit there and they can talk so good about us being like a great organization and stuff like that, it is really good to hear. So
Callie says, Teran, off topic, what do you think of Leon O'Neal Jr., the safety from Texas A&M?
love that dude, man. Love that dude. If we can get him to replace Tart, I'm all for it. Like, I don't know how, you know, hopefully his stock doesn't rise too high because we don't pick till 61. But yeah, I'm a big fan of his. And yeah, I think with him and Talanoa Hufanga competing at that safety position is going to be good, man. I would love to get my hands on that dude.
Um, do you think that Tart is somebody that we let walk and replace in the draft?
I think so. I know everybody. I know, like we were talking about this earlier. People were split on keeping Tart because him and Ward have so much chemistry because they've been playing since high school. But sometimes it's time to let people go. Sometimes you got to let nature run its course and just be like, you know what, it's time to go. Like there's some dudes that I wouldn't mind keeping, but I think Tart's gone unless he gets no offers to where people are going to be like, oh no, this isn't that. But I think last year he played on like less than $1 million. So if he's okay with that again, he could come back. Like if he's like, hey, I want a similar deal, because as we talked about, if he signs a 1 year deal and he has a good year, and then we all talked about the cap spike in 2023. So maybe if he wants to bank on himself again to come back, make $1 million and say, look, I still have it, and then get himself maybe a $4 or $5 million payday. You know what I mean? So it's possible, but in my opinion, I think he's gone. I mean, we're looking at this team. There's so many free agents, and I think the safety class, like Callie brought up, the safety class is pretty good. You got the other dude from Penn State, Jaquan Brisker, I think his name. There's so many good safeties in this class. I wouldn't mind just go ahead and banking on just drafting one. But yeah, there's just so many guys because you have Juwan Jennings, and of course, I think he's going to be kept. You got Aziz who's restricted free agent. Like I would love to keep him, but like I said again, who we don't have the money like everybody else. So since he's being restricted, I'd like to put a high round tender on him, like a second. So if you
Right.
want him, if you want Aziz Al Shair, you can give me a second and you can have him.
Yeah. I think Tart is one of those players that a lot of people have an emotional connection with too as well. But for me, I would like to improve back there and get some actual playmakers back there. Um, and I know, the last thing we all remember of Tart is dropping that interception. I think that just goes into like his career over a whole with us. Like and him and the whole Jimmy Ward combination, and everybody says, oh well, they're asked to do different things, and I totally get that, and I know, if teams aren't throwing at them, they can't make plays. However, there are plays to be made out there, and they don't make them. With the D line that we consistently have over the last couple years, like there's opportunities, to get those interceptions back there, and we don't get those. So I would definitely like to upgrade that position if at all possible.
Yeah. And you know what people forget about too, and I don't know how good he's gonna come back, but we still got Tarvarius Moore coming back after a torn Achilles. And before that injury, he was a 4.32 guy. So even if he loses some speed, because they said that possibly you lose your explosion and stuff like that with that kind of injury. Even if he comes back running a 4.4, that's still fast. So I have high hopes for him too. Hopefully, he had good rehabilitation over the summer, over the off season, where because he hurt his injuries, he got his injury so early in training
Yeah.
camp that he's going on a long time. So hopefully he's probably fully recovered. So if he can come back, the thing that only worries me with Tavares more is sometimes he takes some bad angles. But I think if he can fix that, he's still young. I think he's only like 25. He's still young. If he can come in here and compete as well, he has pretty good ball skills. I think we should be okay too. That's another safety bringing in with Hufanga, that can compete and stuff. But yeah, I'm still with Cali. I love the dude from Texas A&M.
Yeah. Um,
Exactly, Cali. Exactly. If he didn't run down Aaron Jones, we wouldn't have been in the in the NFC Championship, or we wouldn't be playing against the Rams in the NFC Championship game. I totally agree with you because Aaron Jones scores a touchdown, we lose that game.
um, Also, it was brought up, and we talked about this last week about Lynch, if he was going to take that TV deal and whatever. And he talked about that he actually did go to dinner with Troy Aikman and all those guys, and they offered him the position, and that, he turned it down because his heart was with the 49ers at this time, and he wants to finish what he started and believes that, the 49ers are on their way to having a team to be able to finish that and win a Super Bowl. Um, However, he did keep saying about the money aspect and how it was a lot of money that he, ended up turning down. Um, for what? Like it's always joked about that people say the players that we draft well, that was Adam Peters. And the players that we drafted bad, that was John Lynch, right? Like everybody's always talking about like what does John Lynch do,
Yeah,
like
that's what I always hear. Yeah.
yeah. But I think it has to be said like about the type of person that, John Lynch is. Like we see, especially in this day and age, that money controls a lot of things, a lot of the decisions that people make. And for him to turn down money that could have possibly, significantly bettered the future of his family, I think that has a lot to say about the person that he is and about his belief in this football team and what they're doing here. So yeah, like shout out to him because that was pretty cool to see and to hear him talk about that.
Yeah. You know what it comes down to as well, Mariah? It depends on your love for the game. So here's my thing. Like, and I get it. If you love your job, money is not always everything. So I
Right.
know, even though he's still around football, he's in the booth, he's talking about what's going on in football. But I think it's a different feeling when especially when you're an ex-player. He's an ex-player. He feels like, man, I took this job. He feels like I'm not a failure. Like I'm not going to leave here unless either I'm fired or until I win us a Super Bowl because that's what I came here for. So
Right.
I think his ultimate goal is nice. So yeah, you're right. Like I have no issues with that. I actually commend him for turning down more money. I'm gonna be honest. As much as I like talking football and all this stuff, if I was offered a job as a scout to be at the combine and scouting linebackers and safeties and stuff, I would love to do that. I'd
Yeah.
rather do that than have my face on TV talking. You know what I mean?
Right.
That to me is more of a passion for me to be able to actually sit with these dudes, see what they can do, scout, and say, look, this guy's a first round grade. This guy has a second round grade, whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? Like that to me is more passion. So I feel like with Lynch, that could be it. He's just like, look, I love being in the locker room. I love being in the meetings and getting ready to improve this team. So maybe the money to him is not everything because he has so much passion for trying to build what he started. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He talked about that, like the competitive nature of the game is something that he missed so much when he was, just doing TV in the booth or, um, but yeah. Anything else that you want to hit on before we wrap it up?
No, I think you wanted to talk on the Trey Lance ain't ready thing, or do you want to change, or you want to wait to talk about that?
Um, I mean, up to you. I mean, we kind of talked on it, a little bit
Yeah. Okay.
um last week with Dion.
Oh, okay. So we're yeah. So we're
Um,
good then. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you had anything specifically to say.
No, I mean, just to piggyback off of Dion, and I don't want to hold nobody up too long, but I kind of agree. Whether people accept it or not, we're still in a racist society where I'm gonna be real. Some people look at it's funny because they'll root for a receiver, they'll root for a running back, but at that quarterback position, they just feel like sometimes a black man can't lead a team, and that's just sad because you look at a Russell Wilson, you look at, and that's not even, and it's not even having to win a Super Bowl. And I get it, like people, the ultimate goal is to win a Super Bowl, but there has been successful black quarterbacks who have ran offense sufficiently. Steve McNair, Donovan McNabb, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson. He gets his team usually in the playoffs every single year, even though this year he got hurt. So yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that today, Callie. No dumping on Jimmy. We're talking about Trey. But yeah, this whole talk and narrative of Trey is not ready. I think it's just, yeah, I think it's just one of those things where people just, like I said, they look at Trey and look at the skin color, and it's just sad. Like, a leader is a leader, you know. And I'm going to go back to saying what I said on Spaces a couple of days ago. It's sad because a lot of these fans will sit there and support a black man, on other stuff. But when it comes down to it, it's like, oh, when it comes down to being like, whether, looking at him on a certain level, they're dismissed. Like Ian Johnson. I don't know if you remember that guy. Remember the running back that played for Boise State? Remember
No.
after they beat Oklahoma with that Statue of Liberty play? He got on one knee and he proposed to one of the cheerleaders, and she said yes. After he proposed to her on the field, like I said, he was a black man. The what cheerleader was white. Okay, exactly. Troy Doug Williams. But you look at Ian Johnson. He proposed to a cheerleader. He's black. She's white. He got death threats, letters, emails talking about, you're the N word, stay away from our women, just all this other nonsense. And he came out
Oh
and did an
well.
interview. He came out and did an interview, and he was just like, it's sad because the same people that are sitting in the stands supporting me week in, week out are pissed off because I asked a white cheerleader to marry me.
Yeah.
Foolishness. Like, that kind of stuff right there, it just sucks because it's like, if you're gonna support everybody. Because like I said, I feel like people think like, because I think people think playing receiver, corner is minimal thinking. Like, you just go out there and you run a route, but quarterback has to know so much, and a lot of people just have this narrative like black people don't have the intelligence, they're not smart, and they can't run a successful offense and take a team to a Super Bowl, and that's sad.
Yeah, and we consistently hear people say that about Trey, yet it's been said numerous times by every single person that's, a part of Trey's, upbringing, growth, football, everything. Any person that's in his life talks about how smart the kid is. Number one thing overall about, the type of guy that Trey Lance is and the brains, that he has. And, um, it's just, it's something when I texted you about this earlier, it's because I was reading that, thing that Rappaport had tweeted about, about Lamar Jackson. And in the comments, it was continuously said about, oh, well, how can you say that racism is still in the NFL? What about this person? Or what about this situation? Just because you can pull out one or two people or one or two situations in the whole NFL, in the whole history of the NFL, years and years and years and years, does not make it seem or does not make it, that racism isn't a part of the NFL. Like, that's great that you have one or two situations, but this should be every single situation 100% of the fucking time. And it's not. So for you people to sit in these fucking comments and say, like, oh, well, this person, how can you say that this quarterback was treated racist? Like, well, that's great. And you're saying that as a fan. I'm sure like whatever situations you're throwing out there, those players are going to tell you something different. Like you're not in their life 100% of the time knowing what they go through and put up with like consistently from these people, you know. Um and I know like obviously I don't have a right to speak on it. Like I have no clue about what anybody goes through, but I can speak on the fact that white people always seem to want to throw out, oh, but this, but that, but nothing. Like, it's an issue and it needs to be dealt with. Like, we shouldn't be continuously have to talk about this year in and year out for the last how many fucking years, because you people can't get it through your thick fucking skulls that everybody should be treated the same. Like I'm so sick of it. Like, I've seriously have cut people out of my life, family members. Like, it's really like a topic that, like, I hold close to my heart, obviously. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, it just
Absolutely. No, you're totally right. And and it's just sad too. And it's not just the NFL, like what Symmetry was saying. It's a global system. Like, people just have a thought process of, they just feel like, black people just don't have the intelligence of white people. You know what I mean? So it was funny, like with my job, I talk on the phone a lot, but I do a lot of emails. And I was emailing this homeowner back and forth, and I finally met this dude at a board meeting. He comes up to me without saying he's racist, or not. Well, I can't really say he's racist without saying. Well, I'll put it this way: he came up to me at a board meeting and said, "Oh, you're Teran Lewis?" I was like, "Yes, sir." He was like, "Oh, I'm surprised to see that you're a black guy."
wow.
And I was just like, "What?" Like, he was just like, "Yeah, the emails came off. Emails came off so intelligent and so articulate." And I'm just like, "Wow!" Like, this dude is telling me he's racist without telling me. Because he thought, because of my emails being so well said and well spoken and articulate, he couldn't fathom that it was a black man on the other side of the keyboard that was emailing him. I'm just like, yeah. So it's one of those things where, like, it pissed me off, but I was in a professional meeting, so I just kind of, like, whatever the case may be. But those are the kind of comments I'm talking about. Like, they just really feel that, like, that we can't be on their level when it comes to intelligence, and it's
Right.
sad.
um yeah, and I appreciate you guys saying that, I do have a right to speak on it. I will say, and not to compare ever, one situation to the other, but and I've talked to you about this before, working in a field that is mostly men, um white men, obviously. And um when the same, when they find out, that a person in that field, a person, that's a part of management in that field, is a woman, um, I don't get the same respect. We'll just say that people of the same position, that I'm in do, that are men. Um, I've got turned, put in the system, that they interviewed me for promotions when they didn't, and then give, the job to, obviously somebody that should have never, gotten the job. Um, so yeah, I mean, definitely in the workplace, all through, this isn't just an NFL situation. This is throughout, not even just the workplace, like
Yeah.
the grocery store, every, situation, that people have to deal with in their lives. And, it's really sad that we're in 2022 and this is still something that we have to discuss like this.
Yeah, it's sad.
Um,
But yeah, that's all I want. That's all I wanted to add about the trade thing. Yeah, it drives me crazy. I just, and it just sucks too, because, you know, I think it's gonna take him winning a Super Bowl for people to kind of back down, because they're gonna say, see, like, if we, like, I've seen people on Twitter say, if he doesn't take us to an NFC Championship in his first 2 years, then that's a failure. We should have just kept Jimmy. And I'm just like, like, what are you talking about? Like, Jimmy is a vet. Jimmy's been in so long. This is what is expected for, excuse me, from somebody who's making 27 million. Like, for you to put that on Trey to be like, well, in his second season, second full season, he can take us to an NFC Championship as a failure, is asinine. Like, that's just the comments I'm talking about, because I feel like there's people out there who want him to fail just so they can be right and say, "See, I told you so."
right. Yep. Um, and yeah, Sim, I completely agree. Some people in my family are past fixing, we'll just say that. And that, I mean, that's not going to stop me from speaking out on how I feel. And I have a platform of my own and will continue to use it in that, and stick up for and try to, help contribute to fix things, any way that I possibly can.
Absolutely. Well
Um,
said, Mariah.
I appreciate you guys. Shout out to Melissa. Happy birthday.
Hey,
I
Melissa.
appreciate you dropping in.
Haven't seen you in a
And
while. Thanks for joining.
yeah, um, she took a little break, so it's good to see you
Good.
back and hope you're having a great birthday. But yeah, we'll wrap up here. We
All
appreciate you
right.
guys hanging out with us on this Saturday.
I appreciate you, fam.
It
Thanks for
actually was
joining us.
pretty cool doing a Saturday show.
Yeah, it is.
Uh,
Yeah,
we'll have to do it more often.
sure.
But yeah, we'll see you guys next week, hopefully with a special guest. And I hope everybody has a great week. Stay safe, everybody.